Alright, so today we are working on the 87 for the weekend. This car's been a big old mission. There are so many new parts on this thing, it's crazy. I'm sure you've seen there's a previous video we have on our channel going over kind of all the parts that went in on the back suspension. Everything for the back, and then most of the front is all completely brand new from Mercedes. Like shocks, bolts, springs, ball joints, bushings, rotors, I mean everything's brand new. So I did all that and the car didn't run, and it was having some overheating issues. So I finally got all that sorted and pulled the head off, took it to machine shop, straightened it out, checked for cracks. These things are notorious for cracking because everything gets so hot right here. And then got that back, powder coated the valve cover, intake manifold, and then ceramic coated the exhaust. A bunch of new parts and goodies here. Everything's kind of all stock. It did get a valve job, and that's about it, I think. All new cooling system, radiator, stuff like that. So I get the whole thing back together, right? Start driving around, and everything's great. Now, mind you, this car sat for a long time over its years. So, of course, everything's all dried and rotted and not sealing anymore. So now that this thing runs absolutely perfect, it starts leaking oil. So I finally figure out what it is, and it is coming from, let's see if I can get a shot. It is coming from the injection pump right in between there. I don't know if you can kind of see that, but I'm going to pull the injection pump on this thing today. I'm going to get a little time lapse of that. So I'm going to try to do it without taking the intake manifold off, which doesn't look any fun, but that's what it's going to be. I hope there's a timing basket behind the vacuum pump, otherwise I'm just going to have to rig something up to hold the timing chain. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Start ripping this thing apart. So I want to drive it. Alright, got the pump out here. This is where it was leaking. Right in between the case on the governor box, right there. And every time, and it wouldn't leak at idle. It would only leak when you'd rev it up. So when you'd give it some throttle, it would just come spraying out of here. Dumb. So I'm gonna try pulling this thing apart and see if I can clean it up a bit, because God knows this thing needs a bath. And then we're gonna get this thing back together, and then hopefully that'll be it. You can see all of the oil this thing's been spraying all over the place. So time to play cleanup game. Alright, got this thing apart. This thing looks crazy inside. Strange. Hopefully it works when I put it back together. So this is where the gasket was broken. You can see that, and that's where it was leaking from. So hopefully just replacing this gasket and then everything else in the kit, if I can find where everything goes, this thing should be back up. It's amazing how much oil is in this thing. This thing dumped like half a quart of oil out of it as soon as I cracked it open. Let's keep working. Alright, I got this thing cleaned up. Both the mating surfaces on the pump and the governor right here. So we're going to try to replace the gasket on this. It's going to be a little tricky. But I'm going to use some RTV, some Benz RTV, just to make sure the gasket doesn't move around when I try to replace the governor, and so it don't leak again. Anyway, that's the goal. So a nice little gasket here. Oh wow. Yeah, there's not much of a mating surface to seal on. So gasket goes like that. I'm going to get a little bit of this clear RTV. Just want a little bit. Smell the silicone in here. Just a little bit. This is a good time to use Permatex spray gasket stuff. Wish I had a can. Make this job a little easier. Don't recommend doing what I'm doing. Try this at home. If you really want to, it's on you. Alright, so get this just a little bitty coating. Now I gotta line up like this cup for the center here, and then I gotta get that spring pin back on. Okay. Give that a shot. Now I'm gonna let this thing cure for about 20 minutes after I get it bolted in, and just kind of the bolts snugged up a little bit, just to let this thing cure as much as possible. Okay, let's see if we can do this. So, do I want to put some RTV on the other side? I do. I think I do. Hopefully, to drive this thing around and nothing else leaks. This thing has been such a fighter. This thing would much rather sit than run again, but I am determined to win against this guy. We're going to drive it all over the place, boost around. I think Josh got some footage when we were at a exotic car meet just around the corner here. I was kind of boosting around Easton with all the exotic cars, looking like the big laughing stock, looking like the clowns in the old diesel Mercedes. That stuff's funny. Alright. Looking pretty good here. Smells like silicone. Hopefully things we're going to seal here. So this thing's all lined up about where I'm happy. Alright, let's see if we can do this. Cat scared me. You're just trying to come in and hang out. Alright, so this cup has to go in here. Over. That locks that in. Alright, smooth. See if I can hold this thing in place long enough to get a bolt in. That's enough to hold it. Look at that. Doing pretty good. I'm not really running these down until I get them all in there. Alright, now I'm going to run the rest down by hand so I can feel it. I'm barely going to put any pressure on that. Let that silicone set up and then I'll come back around and crank it down a bit. Just till the bolt bottom's out. Alright, everything still looks good. Amazing how much oil came out of this thing. Alright. Now we got one more gasket back here. Now this kit comes with another gasket. I think this is the little pan gasket. Yeah, that's that guy down there. That comes with, and it comes with some O-rings, a cap, and some seal, and some parts that I have no idea that goes where. Of course you got to get all this stuff in Germany. Can't get nothing in the States. So I'm going to do the same on this back little access door. Now this is Mercedes oil pan gasket maker. But today it's an injection pump gasket maker. So I wish I knew more about these injection pumps so I can turn the power up a bit more, but I guess there's a company in like Finland that does it. Of course you got to send it overseas and do all that nonsense to it. But I did turn up the ALDA, ALDA, which is this guy up top, which is a fuel mixture based off like boost input. So, and that did smooth it out quite a bit. It definitely made quite a bit more power after I turned that up a notch. So again, I'm just going to run these down but not tighten them until been about 20 minutes or so. All that work just to replace those two gaskets. Anyway, we're going to let this thing sit for a little bit. We'll get back to you when, probably after it's back in the car and we're just finishing up the steps. Sure you guys want to see the reverse of taking it off. So, there we go. And just like that, it's back together. So, I think I got everything pretty much buttoned up. There's no coolant in it, just because I want to make sure the timing is correct on the injection pump and make sure that it actually fires up and runs before I try to fill that back up, because coolant for this thing is expensive. So, without any further ado, I think we're good. We're going to yeah, oh my. Look at that. Alright. I'm going to say the timing's off. We're going to try this again here.
Have you had the GoPro in there?
Yeah, I've been recording on it. Alright. Let's see if this thing will fire up here. Much better. Much better. Alrighty, so she's a runner again. So, not perfect here. What had happened was, I was putting the timing, everything back together for the injection pump, and there's this tool right here. This is a Mercedes injection pump, like timing stop. So it goes into like a slotted thing. I lost the collar back here, but it's supposed to go into the slot of the timing or of the injection pump, right? There's a turnover, like a reluctor wheel in there, turn over, and you can grab the slotted screwdriver, right? And it's supposed to grab here and then stop the injection pump from turning over. That way you can turn the main screw out, which is a left-hand screw right behind the vacuum pump. So I put this thing together, and why it was running like crap was the timing got off. So I pulled this thing back apart again, and I figured out that this tool didn't go in all the way. So I had to grind it down around the edge here and then open up the slot a bit so this could actually go in and engage onto that slotted part there. So that was some hell. This was supposed to work. Of course, I had to modify things. It's nothing ever works right from the factory, or actually whoever made that part. But anywho, it runs much better now. Fired right up. So that's great. I'm going to get some coolant in this thing. Yeah, and then we're going to give it a drive tomorrow, I think. I'm going to let the silicone stuff on the injection pump dry overnight. At least it's got some oil in it, or whatever. Oh, that was a bunch of work. I'm out. See you tomorrow. Alright, we're back working on the 87. Got this thing mostly back together. So we're going to add some coolant. We'll go with the blue stuff this time. Give that a shot. And they should be back together. Give this thing a test drive. Hopefully she fires right up. Look at that pour. God knows this thing takes all the fluids. important step. Make sure not to be bleeding.
We look good.
Alright, let's keep going. Alright. Let's get this thing fired up. See if she's all nice and happy and not leaking anymore.